And in today's video, we're going to be going through how obsession fuels my grind, with the mission just to show our builds raw and real, just basically to show you the wins, the losses, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and to solve what hurts, basically solving big, messy problems in terms of chaos for organization and businesses, and to call in a great deal of visionaries, people that truly get what it is that we are striving for, and also just to build a network of cool people doing cool things. And how obsession drives me is broken down into four different steps, of which number one is perfection isn't optimal, where why this matters is that good enough flops, obsession wins. Every pixel, every pitch, I own it. Basically, just taking accountability for what it is that we're building and having that mindset of how can we actively try to build the best possible platform or the best possible product for our client base, and just constantly keep hammering down the nail on that and saying, hey, I rewrote the dashboard 3 times and now it's cold. And now we've emailed 50 planners, for example, and we've tweaked each and every one to make it more personal, saying, hey, we're just going to go dive deep, in the sense that we're just going to continue to keep on diving deep in building this value that we want to build. And the lesson that I've learned from this is obsession turns average into elite, just focusing in on the small details, even if it's something that you may not think is important. One of the things is you may not think it's important, but your client or people are going to see that. I remember one example where I had a friend that told me that he went to a museum and one of the pipes was showing, and because they didn't want the pipes to show because people would notice that, it's they put a painting over it. And one of the things that you also, or I've at least also thought about, is hey, if people are going to see it, we need to make sure that the details are zeroed in. And the grounding question I just like to ask for this is, what's one detail I can perfect this week in order to just build the best possible product that we are actively building, and just continue hammering down and saying, hey, perfection isn't optimal. We need to zero in on the details in order to just continue to build this product that we are building. Which then leads into the second point, which is solve what others ignore. And why this matters is saying, hey, most people dodge the hard stuff and I run at it, and that's my edge, in order to say, hey, most people don't want to solve these problems, or having the bystander effect of saying, hey, most people say, hey, someone else is solving this problem, but the problem ends up not actually being solved. And that's what I come in and say, hey, I'm actively gonna just come in and I'm just gonna run at this problem no matter how difficult it is, and say, hey, we're just gonna fix it because people need it. They may not know that they need it in the point in time, because no one has ever said, hey, let's fix this feature. But now with me coming in and saying, hey, I'm gonna fix this no matter what, and just zeroing in on that. For example, how I'm actively doing is saying, hey, planners hate ops gaps, and I'm building systems in order to kill it. For example, our Chaos OS and a future, and of course, this is going to be a long term play for us. Just saying, hey, we want to actively just build Killer Chaos OS into one of the biggest and best platforms to help solve chaos multi industries that we're going to scale into the future. But right now, we're just actively just focusing in on one specific ICP and just zeroing in on that and saying, hey, we're actively just going to build for this client profile, and then into the future, we're going to scale that. And a feature that failed, I stayed up 48 hours just to make sure that it's fixed. So obsession fuels where solution needs to be found. So what this basically means is saying, hey, if you're solving these problems with obsession, you're ultimately just going to be saying, hey, I'm going to be the best at this, and I'm going to run at all these problems, and I'm going to make sure that they get figured out no matter what. Of which this lesson, for me at least, is obsession finds solutions where others see walls. So if you have that obsessive drive to say, hey, where are the solutions? Where can we constantly push the needle? That's where you're going to see opportunities within your solution, where you're ultimately just going to run at it. And you're not going to find as much resistance, because simply you're just going to say, hey, you're going to have that mindset of saying, hey, we have this growth mindset and we just actively want to find solutions, and we don't want to say, hey, here's a problem, we're not going to know how to fix it, simply because we're not dodging the hard stuff. We're focusing, zeroing in on the big problems within organizations and just actively just building towards that. And the grounding question I like to ask here is, what's one problem I can solve that others won't touch, of which can be simply just saying, hey, people won't touch ops because it's so complicated as you scale up. But I'm on the opinion of saying, hey, let's fix that and let's just run towards it and say, hey, why aren't people solving it? What is, from a first principles perspective, of why is it people that don't want to solve this problem? Is it because it's hard, or is it because there's a bystander effect, in the sense that, hey, people look at this problem and say someone else is solving it when there's actually no one? And I've been privy to this many times to say, hey, someone else is probably solving this, and find out that, hey, not as many people solving it in the way that you see it to be solved. And that's where your edge comes in, which ultimately leads to the third point, of which is slow is death, just moving with speed and obsessing with speed. And why this matters is speed wins in a fast game. I don't wait, I act, in the sense of saying, hey, we're just gonna build this like right now, because speed is very important in terms of what it is that we're building. So how I'm actively doing this is saying, hey, built a pitch deck in 4 hours, send it the same day, got the call saying, hey, we built this now, do you want it? Client feedback, I pivot in 48 hours, not in weeks. So this is just coming down to the feedback loop, of which that I had to say, hey, we just are inputting so much feedback from our clients and saying, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're getting right, this is what we're not getting right, and just saying, hey, how can we pivot as soon as possible to just build this product right now, right here, right now, and just solve these problems as soon as possible. And the lesson that I've learned from this is, obsession means moving faster than the pack, of saying, hey, we're just going to move as fast as possible, but also just keeping in mind that, hey, even though that we're moving fast, we need to understand that we also aren't slacking on the quality of the product, in terms of what it is that we're building, to say, hey, even though we're moving at the speed, we also just need to be grounded, in the sense of saying, hey, we need to make sure that the product is equally as good in the long run, and not compromise on that. And the grounding question I like to ask here is, where can I move faster today? Which usually is just saying, hey, we need to send out spreadsheets faster. We need to run up communications faster. It's any small aspect within your personal life, and at least my personal life, that I found, that I've realized that, hey, I need to act on this, and I just need to constantly just build on this in order to just be better and create more value into the future, which ultimately leads to the point that ties everything up together, which is, small wins build big. And why this matters is, every move stacks towards the empire. Obsession keeps me focused, and how I'm doing this is saying, hey, one planner system saved 10 hours. Now she's the case study. So let's run that up. Let's constantly just use what it is that we have in order to build big. But in order to build big, we need to start small. And how do we start small? We actively just say, hey, the wins that we have today, we just run that up and scale it into the future. And also for the SDR, hits 20 emails a day, because I drilled in the process to say, hey, let's just dial in and refine the process as much as possible, to make sure that everything is in order, so that when we do scale, everything is stacked up in our favor, in terms of our systems, our processes, and just use those small wins also to just refine our processes. And this is also just one of my thoughts, to say, hey, if you want to win big, you need to start small, because ultimately, if you start big and you don't understand the small wins, you're ultimately just gonna not have that feedback loop that you would when you're starting small. And I see so much benefit, especially for me, just to start small, and in the sense of what it is that I have been doing and that we're actively doing in this day and age, and we're just actively building towards that. And the lesson that I've learned here is, obsession turns small wins into momentum, of which momentum is the number one thing that I've found, which is saying, hey, we need momentum within the business, in terms of how we're scaling, and also in the team, to say, hey, momentum fuels progress. because everyone feels that they're doing something, and that is the number one thing that we can actively do on a day-to-day basis. Because if people don't feel like they're doing anything, they lose a lot of morale, and then it kind of dips their productivity dips, and you don't want that. You actively just want people to be doing things, feeling motivated to work on different projects, and just to constantly just push the needle. And the grounding question I like to ask here is, what's one win I can stack this week in order to build to the big vision, of which, even though it may be small, no matter how small it is, just constantly just asking, hey, what's the one win that I can stack this week in order to just build momentum, not only for me, but for the team as well, and to just actively strive towards that, and just keep building what it is that we're building on a day-to-day basis, and just keep on grinding and saying, hey, we're in the trenches, but what are the wins that we can stack today that ultimately lead us to winning into the future? And I know with this process that we will just continue to refine and just understand and just use feedback loops to say, hey, this is where we're slowing down, this is where we can improve, and just keep on hitting the nail where it is, and just keep on dialing in the process. And I know that into the future we're going to be looking back on this and saying, hey, we use this process, now this is why we're here. And I know that this is just only the start. Only into the future we're just going to be scaling and ramping up each and every day that I have done so far, and make it into a better process also for the team as well. And just dialing in the systems and the processes that we have to make sure that when we scale right, and we do it right, even if it means taking a bit more time. I'm okay with that, and just constantly just keeping on going in terms of what it is that we're building, and just showing the builds raw and real, like I said, and just constantly just keep pushing the needle forward. And if you guys like this video, make sure to connect with me on X, on Instagram, and I will see you guys in the next video.